Hey guys, welcome back. So today we'll see the functions, the basics of functions and how actually functions work. I'm sure you guys are aware about the functions a little bit. So function is a block of code. We can execute that particular block of code from whenever required. For example, so let's take a very simple example. Uh, we will start from regular functions, so how functions are declared, right? So the first thing we call is function. It's the keyword function, and after the keyword function we type the name of the function. Let's say we are making a function. That function is to add two numbers, for example. All right, so function, and let's say add. So add is the name of the function, and then we have this small brackets, and this function will accept two parameters, right? Because we are adding two numbers, so this function will receive two parameters, let's say a and v. So we can receive multiple parameters by uh, separating by comma, something like this. So let's say we are receiving two parameters, and after that we'll use this curly braces. This is called body of the function. All right, so first of all, let me just console the values we are receiving, a comma b, right? So this is how we declare a function. We define a function, the function keyword, then a space, name of the function, then the parameters we are receiving in the function, and then in the function body we perform some operations on these parameters. All right, all right, now let me call this function. Let's see, add. This is the way to call a function. The function name, and after that small bracket. So this, whenever this line is executed, this line will call this function, and because this function accept two parameters, so we have to pass two parameters like 1 comma 3. So what happened when this function will be called, 1 and 3 will be received in a and b correspondingly. The first parameter will receive in the first variable, and the second parameter, second number, will be received in the second variable, and so on. Okay, so let me execute the code. We get 1 3, right? We are sending 1 and 3, and 1 is coming in a and 3 is coming in b, and we are just consoling that a and b on the screen. All right, sorry. So this function, we are calling this function, but this function is not returning anything, right? Whenever you, so what normally happens, whenever we call the function, we expect some value from that function. It's like you gave some work to somebody, and then that 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 person will do that work and give you the output. So it's like this is a person. You can suppose a function is a person, and this person is the responsibility of this person is to add two numbers and give you two numbers, right? So let's say we have one variable c equal to a plus b, and we just return c. So now what happens when we call this function? This function add two numbers and return c, return that sum, and the sum is received in this function, like that sum is equal, right? So this function will call, and this function will call this function. This function perform the operation. The function body is executed, and at the last, this function will return a value, that is c, and this value will be returned here and then assigned to this value, sum. Let me just console the value of sum. Right? We are getting 4 because we are sending 1 and 3. So what is the flow? this function will be called, a and b. The one is received in a, 3 will be received in b, and then the addition will be performed, and the c will continue the sum of a plus b, and at the last the c will be returned from this function, and this function, so the return value will come to this function, to the calling function, then because this call this function, right? So the value will return to this function, and this function will assign the value to a variable, and we are just printing the sum. So this is the flow of how functions work actually. So this is a very simple function. If we are not returning anything, look at this. I have erased the return field. That this function will not return anything. In this case, the function will not return anything, and it will return, in this case, the return will be undefined. We'll get the output undefined, right? So if we are not returning anything from a function, then the undefined will be returned automatically. So we have to return, it's depending upon the things, but normally we do that, we return something. So 4 is the answer for that. Okay, the very important thing, so this is a regular function. How to convert this into arrow functions? So there is some difference. Let me just check. Okay, so how to define an arrow functions? Let's say const add, okay, let add. We have a variable, and we are going to assign a function to that variable. This is called like this one, and a comma b. So this is how the basic syntax to write a arrow function. This is arrow function. So this is a variable. We are assigning this value, this function. So it's kind of, we don't have name in this function, and the parameters are received in this a comma b. Just like a comma b, we are receiving some parameters in that. In this case, the parameter will be received in a comma b. Then we have arrow symbol and the body of that. So this is how we write arrow functions. So this is the regular functions, and this is the arrow function. Only thing is that then we have to do the operations in that. Let's see, and arrow functions also return something, so return should be required. We'll see one more thing, like if there is only single line, then we don't need return, but let's keep this practice, we'll return anything. So this function and this function is pretty much same, exactly same, only there is a difference in syntax, because this is the arrow function and this is the way to write arrow functions. They a little bit different, like function keyword is not required in that, and we are just declaring one variable, this is called add, and we are assigning this entire function in this variable. If we try to call the function, then the calling is pretty much same, and just like we used to call normal functions. So it's called add 1 3, and 1 will be received in a, 3 will be received in b, and finally there will be return c. The output will be coming in sum. So let me just run it. Sorry, the sum is okay. This is the, you have to just, and this as well. Let me just call. So the output will be 4. So this is the way to write arrow functions. So this is a function, right? We can say this is a function without name and the arrow functions. So this is all about very short introduction about the arrow functions and the regular functions and how functions are called. And so whenever we need a function, we can call multiple times. For example, let me just raise that and just uncomment that. So what is the use of that? Let's say the use of one, this is a sum 1, or we can do one thing, we just see, we just call in that console log, right? we're calling this add function, and the output, there will be some written value in that, and we're just going to console that directly. So we're getting right, we can call 2 3, we'll get 5, can 29 and 3, we call 32. So this is the function we can call multiple times depending upon you. So we write this function once, and we can use this function whenever we require the sum of two numbers. Or let's say if we want sum of three numbers, we can add a one more variable, and in this case there will be c. Let's say this c will be, that's d, and in this case we will return d, because d is a sum of all three numbers. We are sending the, we are expecting three numbers, so we have to send three numbers, right? 29, 3, and this one, right? So we will get the output of this one. So this is how parameters, how to receive parameters in function, and how to send parameters in function whenever we are calling that. So this is how all about the basics about functions.